There we go. All right. Okay. Let's see if I do this. All right, do we have sound? Can everybody hear me and see me? Yay, it's good now. Volume is low. Okay, I can fix that. All right, that should be louder. Hey everyone. Yay, I'm so glad it's working. Okay. So tonight's going to be a little bit different because I am doing an online passage. So I'm just trying to figure out how to work everything. Okay. Hey everybody. Yay. Welcome to Cars Workshop. Okay. Let me move this a little closer. See how that looks. All right. Hello, everybody. Okay, no, I had originally planned on starting the Cars Bootcamp on Wednesday, and it actually didn't work out. I had been having some intense left jaw pain that my doctor thinks is left over from my migraines. So it literally hurt to open my mouth. I wasn't eating, and I definitely wasn't talking. So I was not able to do a session Wednesday because I just could not talk. I was in a lot of pain with my jaw. So Wednesday got canceled. So good news for y'all is that we are starting the Mcat bootcamp this Wednesday, and I have been doing a little bit more planning and thinking on it and how to structure it. So I am going to do, thank you, sweetie. I am feeling better. It's very sore. It's like I don't know. I don't know what I did to it, but my whole left jaw has just been really sore and painful. I don't know what's going on with me. My body's falling apart. I don't know why. So this Wednesday we are going to do a boot camp. And I'm going to post a video tomorrow as an intro to the boot camp, how it's going to be structured, what to expect every week, the tentative schedule for the boot camp. So I recommend doing all the videos, but if there's a certain question type that you feel really confident on, so you don't really need to be there for that session, like main point, author's tone, that's my strength. So if you're like, oh, I got that, I don't need to be there for that session this Wednesday, blah, blah, blah. So I will work on that tonight and tomorrow, and we'll film it tomorrow and hopefully post it tomorrow, because I'll probably have to edit it, which is the most time-consuming part. So I will post an intro to Mcat Cars Bootcamp tomorrow, and then we will start the bootcamp on Wednesday. So I am super excited about that because I love this workshop and I love doing passages with y'all, but I also like the idea of taking it a different level and deconstructing the question types and the passages and getting more into the strategies and tips and tricks. So, super excited. We will do it this Wednesday, I promise, and I will post that video for y'all tomorrow. I'm probably going to record it in the morning so that it'll be posted by nighttime, depending on how long it takes me to edit. So look forward to that. Yay! Okay, so I got a request to do a more difficult passage, so I'm sorry for y'all who hate these. But this gets asked a lot because people get very scared of these very difficult passages. I do not know that this passage is necessarily a very difficult one. I literally just decided to do a Khan Academy, and I went on there and just scrolled through the passages trying to find one that looked like, whoa, what is that talking about? So this may be a really difficult one. It may be an easier one. I don't know. I was just kind of scanning because I like to do the passages and the questions live with y'all. So I don't read them ahead of time at all. So this is kind of a two I don't know how two birds one stone kind of thing, because we're going to try to do a really difficult passage. I guess three birds. We're going to try to do a really difficult passage and break down how to break down a very difficult passage. It's Khan Academy, which is new. We haven't done a Khan Academy. I've never done a Khan Academy passage. I've done Exam Crackers, Next Steps, Kaplan. I've never done a Khan Academy, so this is new for me. And it's an online passage, which always stresses me out because like I said last week, I love to highlight. I love highlighting. I was just doing my history homework and I was highlighting it like crazy because that's my favorite way to study a passage. And on a computer system like the Mcat, I can't highlight. Technically you can, but I mean, if you're really good with computers and mouses and clicking and all of that, then you can highlight and you can do fantastic at it. I am terrible at anything technology computer related, so I get so frustrated with the highlighting on the computer that I just don't do it. So, y'all will see how I do a computer passage. I tried doing the double screen and it didn't work, so I'm gonna keep looking into that because I kind of like the idea of having half me, half passage instead of all me. So it's something else I'm looking into, which I can hopefully do in the future. So yes, variety. We're going to try to get some variety. I love the Next Steps just because I think that they are a very good quality books and testing source. I get asked a lot about the press exams, which I have not done yet, but I've heard amazing things about them. And there's also a ton of them because there's 108 in that book. So I do like using Next Steps, but I also want to give y'all a variety, so I'm more than happy to do that. I think Blackboard. Nice. Yeah, this streaming thing has a double screen I don't know, option, but like y'all have seen in almost every video, I have volume and mic issues every single time with this streaming thing. So I'm still not great at working it properly. But I'm working on it. Khan Academy doesn't have the highlight option. Well, that works because I can't highlight anyways. So we're going to try this Khan Academy. I have the computer in a split screen right now, like y'all do. Y'all say that y'all do split screen in YouTube, so I'm doing that with you this time around. So my streaming is minimized. I can't see myself, which is kind of eerie because I don't even know if I'm looking at the camera. But I'm doing split screen. I have the passage on one side. I have y'all, and we're going to try to do this online passage and see how we do. And hopefully it's super hard and I can give y'all some tips along the way about that. Because y'all know I love the super hard ones. Super, super hard. Yes, so I can see that there's a scratch pad thingy, which I guess you can type on. I won't be using that. I'm going to Let me pull up the stream so I can see myself. Hi! So, I'm not going to use the scratch pad thing. I'm actually taking my history of medicine homework. I turned it around. That's the back of the page. See? You know I love my highlighting. So, I'm actually just going to maybe jot some notes down on the back of this piece of paper. Because the Mcat, you do get scrap paper. I do take advantage of that. I do use that if necessary. And I mean, even for just things like, this is kind of getting out of the cars forte, but for sciences, I use I don't know if it's a Kaplan technique or if it's just a technique. For science sections, I will scroll through and look at each passage, like maybe for a second, and figure out what it's talking about, whether it's electricity or a certain pathway, or if it's talking about genetics, or it's talking about redox reactions. And I'll kind of make a note, like passage 1 blank, passage 2 blank, passage 3 blank. And then I do the passages that I feel most confident on first. So I jump around in the sciences, which is very anti my type A OCD personality. I like to do a test in order, but I found that the jumping around really helps me because I build the confidence in the beginning. And then if I run out of time or if I have an issue like that, it was the passages that I wasn't going to do that great anyways. So I always use scrap paper with the actual Mcat because I do for sciences. I literally just write down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I put what the passage, a one word like genetics, redox, glycologist, I don't know, just a one word like what the science passage is. And then that way I can kind of see, and I'll check them off after I do them so I know which passages I have left. And so I use scratch paper for that on the sciences or to do any math or calculations or formulas or whatever. And then for cars, if I really need to and I can't highlight, I do the 3 to 5 phrases for each paragraph and a main idea. Or I might just write a main idea in the author's tone. Like this passage, its title is Deconstructionism in Literature. That might be my, something like that for my main idea with author snobbish. Something like that. So I do use scrap paper on the Mcat because I can't highlight. If I can highlight, I usually don't use scrap paper. It's usually one or the other. And like I said last week, the closer I get to my exam, the more I practice the computer passages and switching to scratch paper instead of highlighting. So for those of y'all taking it very soon, you should be doing these computer passages because as good as the paper passages are, you need to get used to the computer structure. Because it is, my first one, I didn't do any cards passages on a computer screen. And then I went to my Mcat after doing the Exam Crackers 101 book and was like, I don't even know what to do with this because I'm not used to doing it on a computer screen. So definitely practice with the computer screens closer to your test date just to get more practice and feel for it. So there is a scratch pad. I don't know how to use it on Khan Academy. I'm sticking with my scratch paper. So are you guys ready to do this passage with me? Does everybody have their passage and questions and ready to go? There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 paragraphs. Okay, so if I was using scrap paper, there's 7 paragraphs. I would just write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 down the side of my paper, so that I can make a small note next to each. My pen is actually across the room, so I'm just going to use a highlighter. See, I'm still using a highlighter. Yeah, I'm going to fix that. I just ran out of time to do it. Yes, we can definitely do AAMC. Absolutely. I bought the packages, so I will be more than happy to share those. Okay, so it's khanacademy.org. Hold on. Let me just copy and paste this. All right, do y'all have the link right there? That is the passage for you to practice it. It might make you sign in. The other thing about these Khan Academy is once we do a question and we put in our answer, it'll either say right or wrong. It doesn't give feedback. I do remember that. Yay, the link worked. Okay, so we can all do it together. Yeah, I'm going to have to fix it on my website. I did it I posted on my website through my phone, and that sometimes causes some issues. So I'm going to have to go back tonight and fix it. I noticed it right before we started and didn't have time to fix it. So I'm sorry about that. Yes. Absolutely. Again, this is our first one on the computer. The other ones were in a book that I physically own. So the next time I do one on the computer, I will post the actual link. The next step ones is a physical book, so I'm taking a picture of the book. I don't have a link for those. But when we do a AAMC, I don't know that I can do a link because I think you have to pay for those. I've paid for them so I can take a picture. But anything like Khan Academy that has a link, I absolutely will post the link. And if y'all haven't seen, I just did this the other day. I posted a ton of Khan Academy notes on my website. It's on the front page, it's sticky. And it's Dropbox. So if you have a Dropbox, I mean, it's tons and tons and tons and tons of Khan Academy notes. It's basically a type up of the videos and definitions, and it's all kinds of Khan Academy goodness. So go to the website, click Khan Academy notes, download it, and then it's yours to use and to study. And that's science, cars, everything. I don't think it's cars. It might just be sciences. But definitely check that out. It's a free resource. Check it out. It's for y'all. I have it. I'm sharing it. I hope y'all can use it. Yes. Okay, so we're going to start our passage, deconstructionism. Let's start reading. Okay, deconstructionism. Okay. Just finished paragraph 1, and this passage is going to be a doozy. This is one of those passages that makes you question wanting to be a doctor. You're like, why? Why did I even want to be a doctor? Yeah. You wanted a difficult passage. We got a difficult passage. Okay, so that is so many big words and confusing and does not explain anything. Very complicated first paragraph. Obviously, the topic of the paper is going to be deconstructionism, so I would write that down. I'm not going to write down the whole word. So, deconstructionism is talking about literary criticism. It's a paradox. So, I would write deconstructionism. I'd write paradox. And this is one of those passages that makes you want to reread it over and over and over again because your brain is saying, I didn't understand that, reread it until I understand. And that's a mistake. It's going to eat up your time, and honestly, you can read that 20 times and you're not going to understand it any better. I make that mistake all the time. My brain says, wait a minute, I didn't understand what that was talking about. Can we go back and reread it until we do understand it? But you have to tell your brain, we ain't got time for that. Our time's running out. We're doing the Mcat. Shush. So the worst, you don't want to keep rereading it because you're not going to get it. It's written that way on purpose. And this is what I want you to understand about really difficult passages is if it's not written in common man's language. Bob went to the store, common man's language, you're not meant to understand it. It's written in jargon, it's written in words that, and the way it's written is for someone who, this is kind of thinking about who the audience is and who this is intended for. This is not intended for us. This is not intended for, a 20-year-old junior in college taking the Mcat. This is written for someone who understands more about the subject. So when you get that understanding that this wasn't written for you, you're not supposed to understand it, it can take some relief and it can make you realize that, okay, I'm not supposed to understand this, so what do I understand? And instead of trying to reread it over and over and over and just understand the thing in its entirety, pull out what from that you understood, and that's all you need to know. So we know that he's talking about deconstructionism. We know that he's talking about literary criticism and paradox. Okay, so then he starts talking about discourse, historical narrative, self-revelation. I mean, he's just da 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 da. So, what is written in common man's language? That's what you need to pay attention to. And what I would highlight, if I could highlight this, I would highlight anything written in common man language. Things such as the text has no fixed meaning, so when we read, we are prone to misread. That is written in something that's understandable. But when it's talking about, its universitivity and evident history, its manifestation of existential anxieties, um, develop structuralism with semantics and symbolism. We're not supposed to know all this. I mean, the MCAT says that you are supposed to come into cars with no outside knowledge. You are supposed to come into cars like a brand new babe that doesn't understand anything. You are not supposed to come into it with an understanding of literary criticism. And so any words that they don't define, any words that they don't, or anything they don't explain, you're not meant to know it. And they understand that. And that's why they're kind of messing with your mind because they're stressing you out, they're messing with your confidence, and they're scaring you. And it's an intimidation tactic. So completely ignore anything you don't understand. What I want out of this and what I got out of this is the very first sentence that it's literary criticism, paradox, and being subjective, the text has no fixed meaning, so when we read, we are prone to misread. That's all I got out of it. So deconstruction, paradox, misread. Pull out the sentences that make sense because those are the sentences that you're going to get questions on. The sentence isn't, we're not going to get a question on structuralism. Something else that I would note is this is a very factual, there's not a lot of emotions in here. I mean, he does use you or we. When we read, we are prone to misread. But he's using a very professor language and education. We're being educated. So I'm going to move on to the next paragraph. Does that make sense? Pull out what you understand, leave the rest. Leave it. It's not important. And when we have our questions, it probably isn't going to come up. If it does, then they didn't write this correctly. Okay. So we're going to go to the next paragraph and hope that it's a little more basic language than the other one was. All right, we got fundamental premise. So that says to me, pay attention. Its fundamental premise is the endless slippage of the subject, the futility of any attempt to name reality, disillusion, adamant of the collapse. Okay. Did any of y'all understand the second paragraph? Holy cow. I definitely found a hard passage. I'm sorry, guys. Yeah. I didn't understand that either. Let me fix my camera. Yeah, that is harsh. Yeah, I agree with you. I got excited because it was like fundamental premise, and then it started going back into words that I didn't understand. So here, what I would do with that paragraph, and again, I wish I could highlight. Oh, it kills me. I would highlight any, yeah, the United States part. So I would highlight any, if it is capitalized, I highlight it. That's a, I don't even know the word for it right now. But the thing, like the guy's name at the end, who is its leading proponent, America is deconstruction. See, I can't even talk. The United States, European, Marxism, European thought, anything that's capitalized, terms like that, I would highlight. Basically, what I got out of that is that deconstructionism found its best home in the United States. That is the only sentence out there that makes sense. And the other thing that I am paying attention to is the quote that America is deconstruction, because I feel like maybe this could be a tie-in to describe America and how we, in a metaphor way, compare to deconstructionism. Because it's saying that deconstructionism found its best home in the United States and that America is deconstruction. So there's this comparison. And you know what I always say in Mcat passages, compare and contrast. You pay attention to anything that's being compared and anything that's being contrast. So for number 2, I would write deconstructionism and the United States of America. Hi, Noah. That's all I would write for number 2. USA, I can never get this one right. So, moving on to number 3. I'm really hoping these questions are easy peasy. Because usually when you have really hard passages, you have really easy questions. So, now we got the 70s. It filled perhaps better emptied the gap left in the humanities in the U.S. by the demise of the old and new criticism by what began as brilliant and creative analytic performances soon became classroom.
Mommy.
No, I can't talk right now. I'm trying to do something. No.
If I fix it.
No, don't fix it right now, okay?
Yes, this thing falls apart.
Okay, so Noah.
This thing falls apart.
I know. If you want to stay in here, you got to be super duper quiet, okay? Deal?
Mom.
No. If you want to stay in here, you got to be super duper quiet. Can you be super duper quiet?
I want to tell you something.
No, you can't tell me something right now, honey. Okay. So for the third paragraph, sorry about my 3-year-old.
Mommy.
Noah.
And what? There are toys in you.
Yes,
From
honey.
Room, and I take them out.
Okay. Shh.
There are puzzles and the water.
Okay, Noah. Mommy's doing something right now. You can either be quiet or you gotta go. All right. Sorry about that, guys. So for the third paragraph, thank you. He's driving me a little nuts right now. All right. So for the third paragraph, I'm paying attention to. I will say this. Do y'all feel like the third paragraph is more understandable? I feel like we're leaving the big words. We're kind of, I mean, it's not, a nursery rhyme, but it's getting more normal language and more understandable. Do you get that feeling with the third paragraph? That we're starting to make a little bit of sense? Maybe. Noah? No. Noah. No, baby. Okay. I'm getting that sense. Like the third paragraph, it feels like, I mean, we're not understandable, but it is better than paragraph 1 and 2. It's starting to kind of, so we have 1970s deconstruction, um, and that is being studied in the classrooms. So we're focusing on the US. The first paragraph talked about Paris, the second paragraph talked about Europe with a mention of the US at the end. Now we're focused on the US and we're focused on classrooms, and we have the allegory of, or analogy of junior misreaders becoming CIA operatives. No, what? No, no, no. Decoding false signals sent by a distant enemy, the writer. So now the writer seems like he's getting less stiff. You know, the first two paragraphs were very stiff. Here's all these big words I know. More pretentious. He's being very pretentious, you know, blah, 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 deconstructionism. And now he's talking about, you know, CIA operatives and the enemy, the writer. He's getting more fun with it and kind of letting loose a little bit in his discussion of this. So basically what my image in my head is the author, you know, is starting to loosen his tie. You know, he had a very stiff tie on, a very stiff suit. He was very stuffy. And now he's starting to loosen his tie and kind of get more human and get more common man. That's the feeling that I got from that third paragraph. I kind of envision in my head the author loosening his tie. Does that make sense? I really like that last sentence because that's kind of showing me more of who the author is. That he is considering this type of literary criticism to be like CIA and signals, and the enemy is the writer. So for that, I would write, you know, deconstructionism again. We got USA, and then we got classrooms. And then I would even maybe put in parentheses CIA is the reader, and the enemy is the writer. So it's like us against the writers. That's the notes that I would make with that paragraph. I like that paragraph. All the rest of it, it's much better than the rest of it. Okay.
I get my ball.
Okay, baby.
I'll be right back.
Okay, you be right back.
Or I use book.
Okay, honey, can you be quiet though? Thank you. Love you. All right, fourth paragraph. As long as ever. Okay, and we're back to making no sense. So it was like I was hoping it was going to be a trend, and the paragraphs are going to get more and more common language, and this one's got a little bit of common language in it, but then he wraps it up in the end with all his big words and pretension. So the tie is not off. The tie is still on. What I got out of this fourth, I like that quote: "The history of literature is part of the history of criticism." I would highlight that if I could. I like deconstruction transformed everything into social commentary, making affinities with sexual and racial politics. I like that quote. That is stuff that's in common language. That is not confusing. I'm not saying it's not confusing, but it is written in a language that is understandable. So anything in a passage like that is written in stuff like the history of literature is part of the history of criticism, that's understood. So anything that you can understand from a passage, I would, even with a difficult passage like this, I would highlight only the sentences I understood, because those are the sentences that are most likely going to be questioned on. So that quote and the fact that it transformed everything into social commentary. The rest of the paragraph, I have no idea what it's talking about. I'm not even worried about it. I'm ignoring it. So he's talking about criticism being part of literature. Literature and criticism go hand in hand. You can't talk about the history of literature without the history of criticism. and that deconstruction transformed everything into social commentary. So, this author, from what I've understood so far of him, and especially this paragraph is more about the author than I think it is about criticism. What I got out of this paragraph is that the author is very pro literary criticism. Um, for instance, if you got a passage written by an author, he might not say that the history of literature is the history of criticism. He would say that the literature, the history of literature has been stifled by criticism, or the history of literature stands on its own without criticism. He wouldn't give it an equal right or an equal um, weight to criticism that he does literature. As an author, he would put literature at a way higher level than he would criticism, whereas this passage author is putting criticism and literature hand in hand. I mean, he's saying their histories are tied together, and he's saying not that literature created these movements of social commentary, but that the criticism of literature transformed everything into social commentary. So he's giving a lot of weight to criticism. He's almost putting criticism and literature on the same level. Did y'all get that kind of feeling from that? Y'all understanding what I'm thinking? Have I totally lost y'all? Or are y'all kind of on the same track? Okay. Yes, it is a thought process. And I mean it's part of actively reading and really just pulling things out and kind of connecting things. Um okay, so what I was saying was the way that I read into that when he says the history of literature is part of the history of criticism. Yeah. I wouldn't focus on the sexual and racial politics. I think that's just a comparison about how important this criticism is. Because when you think of sexual and racial politics, I mean, racial politics have been going on for decades. It's still going on. And it's a hot button topic. And it's something that everyone is talking about. And it's something that um, is constantly on people's minds and voices and is a conversation that is constantly going on. So I think by mentioning sexual and racial politics, he is comparing the effect that this criticism has had, and kind of putting our minds like how influential deconstructionism is. So the way that I read that is how important deconstruction is. I mean, obviously, this guy thinks deconstructionism is important because he wrote this entire passage about it. But how he is giving deconstruction all of the credit for this social commentary. And then on top of that, he is comparing literature and criticism like they're the same thing, like they have the same weight, which is very interesting because, no, not right now, baby. Because an author or someone who is a fan of literature or a writer of literature would never give critics the same respect and weight that he gives other authors. Hemingway is not going to give the same amount of respect to a critic as, to someone who writes literature like he does. They would put themselves on a way higher platform and look down on criticism because they, instead of putting out these works of art, they just turn around and talk about the works of art. They're not the painters. They're the people staying in the museum and talking about it. So an author would never put them on the same level. But yet this author says that the history of literature is part of the history of criticism. And he's just really giving criticism almost an equal weight, which makes me think he is a literary critic. He is saying that he is just as important as an author. And that criticism, I mean, he's literally telling us that the history of this criticism, I mean, he talked about Paris and Europe and the 19th century, and then he's talking about the 1970s. So he's giving us a history of this particular type of literary criticism. So he obviously thinks this is very important and very essential to our understanding of literature. So I mean, this author is very pro critics and criticism of literary works, especially deconstruction. It's a very positive passage. I mean, this is not a critical, negative, anti passage. This is a very positive, pro criticism. It's almost to a point of persuasion, like our graffiti passage, almost to a point where he's trying to show us how important literary criticism is and the extent that it's had on our, world and our social commentary, and kind of just trying to show us the importance of literary criticism. So it's almost a persuasion article at this point. I originally in the beginning put education and factual, but now I'm starting to think persuasion. So, I mean, when you read passages like this, you want to pay attention to sentences that, one, you understand. You want to pay attention to any quotes. You want to pay attention to anything that gets explained to you, like a word that's defined to you. We had a passage like that where it was very difficult, and then they defined something for us. If they take a word that we don't even know what it is, and they break it down into common man's language, we want to pay attention to that. And you also want to pay attention just to the feel of the passage and the author behind it. Even if we don't understand his words, we can understand his attitude and his tone through his words. Does that make sense, guys? So yeah, this is definitely a thought process, and it takes time, but I mean, it's baby steps, and you're going to get there. The more that you do these, the more you're able to pull that stuff out of it and to really dig into a passage and see what's beneath the surface, like the author's viewpoints or who this author is, which I would say a literary critic. How are we doing? You guys still alive?
Mommy.
What, honey?
Oh my god, my balloon.
Your balloon's asleep? Okay, tuck it in. Okay, good. Sorry. My 3-year-old is putting his balloon to bed. Okay, so we're going to move on, and we're going to we got 3 more paragraphs. I honestly can't wait to get this paragraph over. I mean, this passage over with, because it's brutal. Yes, honey, I can't talk right now. So we're going to keep chugging through this. All right, our next paragraph. No, don't do that.
I'm not popping this thing. Wait, this thing. See that? I know for that. Oh. Fasten it. Like this. Ball back down. See? That has a bounce.
Okay. Did anybody understand that passage? Oh my goodness. I mean, that paragraph. This passage is brutal, man. I think I found the most brutal one they had. I am so sorry, guys. But we are doing this together. I am holding your hand. We can do this. Okay. So here's what I'm picking out of that. Because I didn't understand most of that. Okay. I understood like 2 sentences. So the first sentence, I wanted the 2 things that I'm putting together: resistance, ignorance. Anyone who resists this type of criticism is ignorant. So he is very anti those who are resisting his type of criticism. So I would put resistance, ignorance. And then the other thing, okay, so we have as their approach prevailed. So this is the resistance group. Gangs of these people descended on the library with their critical services. One would do this, one would do that, one would do this, one would do that, one would do this. And then all that would be left is a few bare bones of undecidable discourse and some tattered leather bindings, and this frenzy would be called a conference of the Modern Language Association. Okay, so here's a couple things I'm noting. The people who are against his form of criticism, he's calling them ignorant. They do a bunch of different techniques, and it ends up leaving nothing left of the literature. Okay, so we were talking about how this passage was very positive literary criticism, very positive deconstructionism. Do you guys get the very negative voice in this paragraph? Do you see how negative and critical he is in this paragraph compared to the rest of the paragraphs? I'm hoping that y'all can see that. Which kind of goes with the compare and contrast thing I've always talked about. So the other paragraphs were very positive, deconstructionism, yay, yes, contrast. And then we have this negative paragraph about the people who are anti-deconstructionism and how they absolutely destroy literature and how they're ignorant and they're critical. And so we just got this very negative anti these people, which is completely different from the rest of the paragraph. So this is our compare and contrast. We got some contrast going on here. Contrast. The Mcat loves contrast. Please have that word on your brain when you do cars. Contrast. Because the Mcat loves it. They're obsessed with it. It is their favorite thing in the whole world. So another thing, so I'm noting contrast, which I would even put that. I would put contrast. I would put, negative. He's not a little negative. He's a lot negative. The other thing that I'm noticing, two more things. One, the sentence, literature as the deconstructionist, which is him. So we got a sentence in there that's about his people mixed into the negative. Literature as the deconstructionist frequently proved have been written by entirely the wrong people for entirely the wrong reasons. I would highlight that. That sentence, I would highlight that 50 times if I could. Highlight, 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 highlight. Because one, he's talking about himself in the middle of a paragraph about other people. So they kind of plugged that in there. Okay, and that is to get you confused because there's probably going to be a question. I would bet money on this. I would bet money that there's going to be a question on that sentence, and people are going to think that he's talking about the people that are against him because of the fact that it's in that paragraph. But he put as a deconstructionist. Deconstructionist is the author. The neo-deconstructionist and the anti-deconstructionist are these people he's talking about. So that sentence, I would circle it, I would highlight it, I would even rewrite it in my notes. That sentence, star it. I would do anything that I possibly could to that sentence. Because that sentence is confusing in that it's in the wrong place. You have a sentence about the good people in the middle of the paragraph of the bad people. That is our needle in the haystack. Okay? So I definitely pay attention to that. He doesn't explain why that they've proven that literature has been written by the wrong people for the wrong reasons. He just says it in there. And then the other thing that I notice is he talks about this horrible thing that these people do. The sentence is about him. That's what I'm saying. So see, it confused you. That sentence is about him because he's a deconstructionist. So that is about the author of the passage, not about this group that he's mad about. You see where that's confusing? Because the very first sentence is any resistance that deconstructionists encountered was ignorance, and that the gangs of the neo-deconstructionisms descended on the library with their critical services. So that's the bad people. He's the deconstructionist. He's the good. Yeah. See why that sentence is like flashing neon lights? That sentence doesn't belong there. So why is that sentence there? That's what I want to know. I want to know if that's there to confuse me, if there's going to be a question about it. Why is that sentence plugged in there? Because it's in the wrong spot. It shouldn't be there. The second thing that I'm really focused on, yes, because this is all talking about deconstructionism, and he's very positive about deconstructionism. Deconstructionism, woo, deconstructionism. So he's a deconstructionist. The other thing that I'm noticing is that all these horrible things that he listed, all these terrible things that they did in literature that literally left nothing but bare bones and leather, he says this frenzy would be called a conference of the Modern Language Association. Okay, so if you were asked a question about how the author of this passage feels about the Modern Language Association, would you say that that's a positive or a negative? Yes, it's negative because he talks about all these terrible things that these people did, and then he said, oh, by the way, all this horrible things, this is the conference of the MLA. Just so, I mean, if we were, he's talking about all the bad things that these people did, and then he tells us that it's the Modern Language Association. So he's very, very anti the MLA. Okay, we are almost done, guys. Woo! Throwing shade. Yes, that was very, feisty. That was very feisty. That whole paragraph. All right, so we got two more. We're almost there. The point that needs to be reaffirmed is that writing is an ancestral act, an imaginative sport. It is, in fact, an expression of moral responsibility. Okay, what did y'all think about that paragraph? I'm thinking we're back to being very positive. Imaginative exploration of ideas. We're in mostly common man's language. We're getting very positive about expression of moral responsibility. That literature is not subordinate. That writers take their fate seriously. Writers are threatened with censorship, imprisonment, killed, or threatened with death for their writings. It's not word games. It's a mode of radical discovery. So very positive towards writers. It seems like he takes literature very seriously. I mean, he didn't write, oh, the literature is so much fun and pretty and I like it. I mean, he's talking about censorship, imprisonment, killed, or threatened with death. So he's taking his literature very, very seriously, and he's very positive about that. So I would say literature, serious. I mean, it's not word games, it's radical discovery. And I would put positive. So I'm starting to take note of which paragraphs are positive and which are negatives. And I'm going to just move down to the next paragraph so we can wrap this up. Okay. I really like the last paragraph. I'm so happy that the last paragraph is in there. Really am. Hmm.
Mommy.
Yeah, that's what Victoria. That's what I'm starting to notice. I'm kind of like going back and looking at.
Mommy,
Noah, okay,
on my
honey,
hand.
not right now.
And I can do by myself.
So the last paragraph really wrapped it up and talked about
Go.
Noah. You can either be quiet or you can go to your room. Okay, thank you, baby. The last paragraph kind of wrapped it up in a nice little bow and talked about letting the authors have creativity and letting them use their creativity to reveal their intelligence, more feeling of morality versus criticizing for the language, which would be the MLA. So I kind of took it as like these critics that pull it apart for its grammar, its punctuation, or its language, or all these different things. The part they don't recognize the beauty and the creativity and the seriousness of literature. That's what I get from the last two paragraphs, which is kind of anti criticism, which is confusing me because in the beginning I felt like there was very positive criticism. Is anyone else confused? I'm really getting confused now. I usually do really well at reading the author's. The last two paragraphs are really making me change my mind. Okay, so I'm not the only one confused. That's really good. See, I told you guys, I'm not perfect. I don't get it all right. So here's what okay. It is okay for a passage to take you in a completely different way than you thought it was. That's okay, because here's the thing. And this is why author's tone and main idea questions are so important. There's a big picture. And if y'all were with us, I think it was the first one we did about the graffiti. It started out as factual, talking about Spanish artists and political uprisings and morals. And at the end of it ended up being a persuasion paragraph where it was talking about graffiti. And we were like, okay, went a completely different way than what we expected. And I will always, from the start, try to predict where a passage is going because I like having a feel of where it's going. But as y'all know, because we've done this a couple times, passages veer a lot. Not every passage. Some passages go the way that we think they're going to go, but then other ones, they really do change. So the last two paragraphs, I agree with you, Victoria. I do. I think the last two paragraphs really sum up the author's point of view and the main point that he's making that wasn't clear in the beginning. And I think that the reason that I misread it, and even some other people misread it, is because the language of this passage was very difficult and very confusing. So, like I told y'all, taking sentences out where I understood, and then trying to figure it out from there. But I really feel like the end of the passage totally changed gears for me, and I'm kind of like I was scrolling up and rereading the beginning a little bit because I really feel like I read the beginning wrong. And I agree with you. Moongazer Bunny, I love that name. I agree with you. I think that he was talking about And even I like now I can reread it with a different, it's like I put on glasses and I can see it better. I feel like when he was talking about the CIA decoding signals by the writer instead of enjoying the literature, I still don't understand most of the first two paragraphs, but I feel like I do understand what y'all are saying. The first paragraph, I didn't get anything negative out of that. And the second paragraph, I still didn't get anything negative out of that, other than that they were associating the United States with deconstructionism, which I didn't consider that negative. The third paragraph, talking about, it being all over campuses and that they worked away, I still didn't get anything negative out of that, even reviewing it now. But with the end of it, tying it up the way that it did, I can see how that is structured. This is why I like doing passages with y'all. Because it's a learning process. It might start one way and then go a different way. So in the beginning, I interpreted it as being positive criticism and talking about the history of it and being for criticism. I personally did not read any words in there that I thought were very negative, although the language is very confusing and it's hard to pull things out of a passage like this, which is why I was talking about pulling out what you can understand. And given the things that I did understand, I didn't get that feeling and that read off of it. But as soon as I hit those last two paragraphs, and I mean, I did get the negative of the people approaching it and there being bare bones and leather in the MLA. And then when you wrapped up the last two paragraphs being very flowery about literature and how serious it is and the repercussions of it and the authors, and then the pro creativity and not attacking it for its structure and language, that's where I really understood what this passage was talking about. Yeah, see, I didn't get that Moongazer Bunny. I really didn't get the negative feel from the beginning. I did get the negative feel from the bare bones and leather, and I got the very positive from the end. And that obviously there's a contrast here because at the end he's very, very bluntly positive for writers and creativity. Yes. I do think he's positive creativity. I think the fact that he's talking about as creativity, as art, creativity of prime power and the making of intelligence, feeling, and morality. I definitely think he's pro creativity and pro authors and literature. And I think he's negative criticism. I mean, I changed my thinking half getting to the end of the passage. And that's okay. That's what I mean. I'm not perfect. I'm not going to read it perfectly. But I did, at the end of that, go, okay, switching gears. Author's positive about the literature as an art and creativity. He's anti-criticism as it picks apart the literature to the point that it's just bare bones and words. So, sorry that I confused y'all, but that's how I read into it in the beginning. This is why I do these cold with you, because it's a process. It's a journey. And for y'all that got that from the get-go, holy cow, y'all are awesome. Because I did not get that at all in the beginning. I didn't get it at all. But the last two paragraphs, that really, really changed the whole thing. So, like, my summary is just kind of crap now. Yeah, see, you're okay. Yeah, Moongazer Bunny, I really didn't see that. But see, this is what, and I talked to y'all about Cars passages being like magic eyes. I don't know if y'all ever did those as kids. But, where you look at something and you don't see an image at all, and then all of a sudden you see it and it's there. I had one of those moments at the end of this passage where I see it. It's a sailboat. That's part of active reading when it turns up differently. Yes. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, you have to be elastic with that. I I did teach you. And I'm happy that I taught you. And now the pupil has become the teacher because you saw it and I didn't. That is awesome. So awesome. I love it. I love that y'all are figuring things out before me. That makes me happy. So how would I sum up this whole passage? I would scratch everything that I wrote in the beginning. I would say that this author believes in the art and creativity of literature and that deconstructionism pulls literature apart unnecessarily. That's what I would get from it. That literature is radical discovery is the words he used for it, and it's very important. And
Mommy.
Creativity is important and not anti-MLA. He hated the MLA.
Mommy, what's that thing? It goes down,
Yes,
there.
honey, that's the charger for my computer. You can be quiet or you can go to your room.
What?
No. Quiet or room.
What?
Okay. Shh.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Stop saying the word quiet. It's not being quiet if you're saying the word quiet. Shh. Okay. All right, we're going to go to the questions now. And I know that some of y'all are still confused. I'm still a little confused. But, you know. Noah, what did I say about being quiet? Okay, sorry. So sorry, guys. He was supposed to be in bed. Thank you. He's driving me crazy, but he was supposed to be in bed. Okay, so we're going to go to the questions, and we're going to hope that we can figure these out because I'm still a little confused, but I feel better about the passage from those last two paragraphs. I'm going to focus on those last two paragraphs. So basically what I'm going to do, because this passage was very confusing in the wording, and it even threw me for a loop, and I thought I was good at this. So when I go through a question and if it's a general question, if it is a general question about the passage overall, I'm going to look at those two paragraphs, not like reread them, but briefly like glance at them as a reminder of that's what this passage is about and that is the author's opinion. So I don't get confused by all the other earlier stuff. Okay. So we are going to talk about the first question, which is which of the following statements best expresses the passage's author's message? So y'all go ahead and type in what you think it is while I read through the answers. So following statements best expresses the passage author's message. 1, the true meaning of text can never be decided. 2, most literary criticism is now deconstructionism. 3, deconstructionism and essentialist, I can't even say that word, critics compete. 4, the most salient issue for literary critics should be creative merit. All right, what are y'all thinking? Noah, why are you under the bed?
Because I need to get that car. And I get that car under the bed. Now I get stuck in there.
Okay, don't get stuck under the bed.
Yes,
A, I would automatically rule out because of the word never. I wouldn't even read the rest of the paragraph.
Mommy.
I also, so A, completely rule out.
I get that car under the bed.
Do you want to be on camera?
Yes.
Okay, come here. I'll show you. Let's see if you're on camera with me.
New camera.
No, there you are. You want to sit on Mommy's lap and help her do the passages? Okay. All right. Here you are. See you.
And my sister knows his name.
Okay. You ready?
I'm not working.
All right.
Mine is not working. Only yours.
Yes. If an answer choice has never or always or anything to extreme like that, rule it out. So A is ruled out because of never. We can rule out C. because he compared deconstructionism and existentialism as the same thing, not competing. So we can rule out A and D, so that leaves B and D. And here is why I am ruling out B. It says that most literary criticism is now deconstructionism. Because of that word now, I'm ruling out B. Because of he talked about it since the 19th century. What are you talking about, baby? He talked about it in the 20th century. In the 1970s is when it started. Oh, I'm just not looking. His name is Noah. What's your name? Tell him your name.
No, I got N a T on it.
Yeah, okay. Noah T. That is his name.
Yeah, we got 2 letters. T and N.
Yes.
Those are my 2 letters.
It's okay. She says hi. Okay. So I'm ruling out A because of never, B because of now, okay, honey. B because now deconstructionism because it's been around since the 70s. C, he compared them as the same. So for me, that leaves D. For y'all that do these workshops with me, you know that I like to eliminate everything as well as argue for my answer because then I know I'm good on both sides because I've argued why I'm picking it and I've eliminated all the other choices. So I'm thinking D. Because he does talk about how critics should give creativity a merit, and he talked about how larger sense considers creativity a prime power in the making of intelligence. Are you singing your alphabet?
Yeah, there are letters on your buttons. Mommy, look.
Okay, so C. Let me see if I can find it. I'd be able to find it better if I could highlight. Drives me nuts that I can't highlight. So,
C is my name, Mama.
C is your name. No, C is not your name. Your name is Noah. That's an N.
And a T's on it. See? Noah T. Noah T.
Yes, Noah T. That is your name. Okay, so in the beginning, he talked about how the first paragraph, he says it's a manifestation. I cannot talk today. Okay, it is a manifestation of existential anxieties about presence and absence, talking about deconstructionism. And then he mentioned it again. And I'm trying to remember where he mentioned it twice. Can't find it. Oh, there it goes. In the second to last paragraph, the point that needs to be reaffirmed is that writing is an existential act and imagination of exploration of ideas.
What button I picking?
That is actually talking about literature, not deconstructionism. So I feel like that. Okay, so that might be confusing because he used the same word in the second to last paragraph talking about literature and writing, and that's imagination, exploration of art. And then he used the exact same word in talking about deconstructionism in the beginning. So that is an answer that's ambiguous. It could go either way because of the fact that he's said it twice, but he's never actually talked about what is that word? That big E word. He never actually talked about those types of critics, if you understand what I'm saying. So he used that word twice in the passage, but he didn't talk about those critics.
I don't see
it. So that answer is way too wishy-washy for me. With the Mcat answers, Noah, I really need to focus. So can you be good?
Mommy.
Okay, no. I need you to be good or you're going to have to go to your room.
Mommy.
So with that answer is too wishy-washy. And with Mcat answers, they're going to be very right. They're not going to be possibly right. And even with MCAT answers, you're going to get multiple answers that could be right. You're going to get 2 answers that are both right, but one is more right. So you're never going to get an answer that's on the fence. And that, even though he used that word twice, he used it once to talk about literature, he used it once to talk about deconstructionism, and he never talked about those types of critics.
I wrote it when you're done.
Yeah.
And
I mean, did you see anything in the passage that talked about 2 different types of critics or competing with one another? Did you?
Mommy.
Yes. We gotta finish this, okay? Do you think it's that one? Do you think it's D?
D? Nope.
You don't think it's D?
No, that one.
Okay, Noah says C, but I'm gonna go with D. So we're gonna, can you click this button and check our answer? Click that button right there. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Yay! It was D. We got it right.
Yeah.
Okay, so D ended up being right. Yay!
Yeah.
You got it right. Good job, Noah.
Yeah, I don't know. I with T on
Yes.
it.
Okay, so we're going to go to the next one. Yes, Victoria, try not to put too much thought into it. I know it's really hard, and I put a lot of thought into it, but that's kind of because I'm explaining my answer really quickly.
Boy,
Sorry, I was reading and talking at the same time. So because I'm talking through it, I'm putting a lot more thought and analyzing into it, whereas during test time, I'm going more with my gut and feelings. So if you have to really force something, like I feel like answer C would be putting a square peg in a round hole, and you'd be forcing it, and you shouldn't have to force an MCAT answer. Can you explain D really quick? Yes, so I think he was talking about how critics in the passage, we were talking about how critics deconstruct it based on its language, and like a CIA agent with codes, and with the writer being the enemy, and pulling it apart piece by piece, whereas he really wanted us to understand the importance of the author and literature and it being a creative art form. And even in the last paragraph, he talks about creativity, a prime power. So I think he was really trying to hone in that critics should be more focused on the creativity and the art part of literature than the actual language and deconstruction of the words. So I felt like D really lined in. Noah, sit still and be quiet or you're going to go to your room. No, I'm not warning you again. This is your last warning.
Mommy.
Okay. Yes, creativity was a very important word. All right, Noah. All right, go to your room.
No.
Then you need to behave. I'm not warning you anymore. Okay. The passage implies that the Declaration America is deconstruction means that. Yes, if you're still confused. Okay. Dang it. I don't think I can go back a question. Can I go back a question? I don't think I can. Okay. So this is what I was trying to show you guys with the questions, and I'm going to go over this in the boot camp very, very importantly, because there are going to be questions and passages that you don't understand, but there are tips and tricks that you can use with all questions and passages. So for like that question, I eliminated A right off the bat because it had the word never in it. I mean, something as simple as any answer that has always, never, too extreme of an answer, only, everything, but any answer that's gotten a very extreme, and which maybe there'll be one here, but an extreme answer, you can rule those out. And when you get to start practicing how to notice trap answers or how to notice wrong answers, you'll be able to find the right answer without even understanding the passage in the question. Noah. So, I'm so sorry about my 3-year-old today. I did not lock the door. He got in, and so, We were able to rule out A. I don't remember. I'm not looking at it. Hold on. I can pull it up on my phone. Okay. All right. So A, I was able to rule out because of never. B, I was able to rule out because the word now. That most literary criticism is now deconstructionism because he was talking about the 70s and the 20th century. So we knew that was out. I mean, he talked about how long deconstructionism has been around. So we could roll out A and D. So that would leave you with C and B just based on the wording, not even understanding the question or the passage, but just on the wording. And you know that to the author, creativity was way more important than existentialism. Noah, please stop. So, I mean, because he said the word creative like 4 times and talked about how important it was, whereas existentialism was just kind of mentioned twice. So even if you don't understand the passage of questions, you can eliminate answers just based on the wording of the answers or what you remember of the passage. Does that make sense? Eliminating answers is going to be like your key thing to do. That is my biggest technique is eliminating answers, because if I don't understand the passage and I don't understand the question, but I can get the question answer choices down to 2, I just gave myself a 50% chance right. Noah. Shush, honey. Quiet. I said quiet. Go to your room.
No.
Yes.
No.
You want a spanking?
No.
You want me to give you a spanking on live TV? Okay. I am so sorry, guys. I am so sorry. I'm going to type that out. I'm so sorry. So, eliminating answer choices is going to be one of the best things that you can do. For your Mcat score. And some of y'all have started noticing that, like the 2 extreme answers and the ones that say never or always. So just make sure you pay attention to how the answers are worded. And we're going to try these out for the rest of them, and I can kind of show you more how I do it. This one says the passage implies that the declaration, America is deconstruction, paragraph 2, means that. Okay, so we talked about how he compared America to deconstructionism, and now that we've finished the passage, we know that he was very anti-deconstructionism and how it kind of stifled the creativity and the art of the passage, of the literature, instead of being focused on the nitpicking of the passage. So we have A, the constant revisions typical of U.S. culture capture the spirit of deconstructionism. We have B, literature produced in the U.S. is especially suited to analysis by deconstruction. We have U.S. literary critics developed the scholarly methods adopted by deconstructionism. Or D, U.S. education is controlled by the political agenda of deconstructionism. So what are y'all thinking for that question? Hold on a second. Y'all work on that question. I will be right back.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Come on.
What? What are you doing?
Go. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. Sorry, guys. All right. It is way past bedtime, so he's a little fussy. Okay, so for this question, so sorry. Okay, so for this question, I'm completely eliminating D, just based on the answer choices. He did not talk anything about education being controlled by That's very extreme. It's way outside of what he talked about. So we can eliminate D off the bat. We can eliminate C because he talked about it being in Paris and in Europe before it was America. It said it found its new home in the United States. So it was not developed. I don't know. Wait a minute. I might have read that wrong. U.S. literary critics developed the scholarly method. Oh, I read that answer choice wrong. I read it the other way. That they developed constructionism. Okay. I do not like this question. Okay, well, I've eliminated D. I still stand by that. B, I'm going to say no. I don't think it has anything to do with U.S. literature. I think it has more to do with the people in the United States liking that type of criticism versus the literature. This is a question where I would go back to the passage. He points out paragraph 2, so I'm going to go back to paragraph 2. And we've talked about this before. I'm really bad at the retrieval questions. But if it says paragraph 2, go back to paragraph 2. If it says sentence 25, go to sentence 25. If it gives you a precise location, then you should absolutely go back to that location and see what it's talking about and maybe even reread it, especially because we read, or at least I read the beginning of the passage wrong. So I'm going to go back to the paragraph that he's talking about. And again, it makes no sense. But he talks about enlightened humanism, idealistic Marxism. Despite its origins, it's found its best home in the United States. That historically disassociated construction of random meanings. Okay, so he's saying the United States historically dissociated construction of random meanings. That is talking about the United States. Or is that talking about deconstructionism? Oh my god, I don't like this question at all. Historically dissociated construction of random meanings. America is deconstructionism. Deconstruction filled, perhaps better emptied, the gap left. Okay. It filled, perhaps better emptied, the gap left in humanities by the U.S. by the demise of the old new criticism. Well, what began as brilliant and creative analytic performances soon became classroom. What do y'all think about this? This one is rough. I'm only naming D and B. So I'm between A and C. We got a poll going. I'm leaning towards A. Okay. I'm leaning towards A, and here's why. He says America is deconstruction. So he's talking about America as a location, not America's literary critics. You know what I mean? He's not talking about the specific critics. He's talking about America as a country is deconstruction. And the way that I see that is we're talking about America as a country. That would make me think an answer that's talking about the U.S. culture versus the critics. Does that make sense? That's why I'm leaning towards A, because it's talking about the actual culture of the United States versus the critics. I don't think that's what he's implying. All right, we got 2 people that are thinking A. Okay, so we're going to go with A. Kind of nervous. Okay, A was right. Yay! Okay, so everybody take a big deep breath because we have this insanely difficult passage and we've gotten 2 out of 2. So we are kicking butt on this passage that makes no sense whatsoever, but we are doing it. A, because it's more broad. Yes, I agree with you. A is talking about the like country as a whole and the culture of it. Whereas U.S. literary critics is very scholarly methods is very narrow. I agree, absolutely. Okay, take a deep breath. We got 2 out of 2. We're doing pretty good. Okay, number 3. Sorry, my glasses are filthy. According to the views of the passage author, all right, so now we're talking about the author's viewpoint. A responsible review of stage production of Shakespeare's Julius. A was right. Yay. Oh, it's okay, honey. I totally understand. Okay, according to the views of the passage author, a responsible review of a stage production of Shakespeare's Julius Caesar would probably. Okay, this is one where I'm going to talk about the question before I even look at the answers. I don't do this very often. I got asked that question if I look at the answers, if I come up with an answer in my head before I look at the answers. I don't like doing that because you can come up with an answer that's different from Mcat and then you can find an answer that looks more like yours versus finding the best MCAT answer for a question. However, for how confusing this passage is and how I thought the author went one way and he actually went a different way, and just the structure of the passage as a whole, I'm going to kind of predict the way I want to go with this. So we know that he is not going to be for a review of a stage production of Julius Caesar that nitpicks the lighting or the movements or the costumes, because that's what these critics did to this literature. They pulled it apart until there was nothing left. So he's going to be against anything that's like nitpicking the production, and he's very pro the art and creativity of literature. So he would be very pro a review of the play that was the way that it made you feel, or the way that it was done, or the creativity and the art of it versus critiquing the nitpicking of it. Does that make sense? So before I even go to these answers, I'm getting in my mind anti nitpicking, pro creativity art. I'm not like saying this is what the answer has to be. I'm just kind of getting an idea in my head of where the author stands and how to relate that to a stage production, because this passage really kicked my butt and really confused me. So I want to get that right in my head before I look at the answers. I don't do that a lot. I like to look at the answers and go with what is the best MCAT answer. But for this passage and this question, I'm absolutely doing that in my brain. And I want to share with y'all what's in my brain. So let's go to the answer choices. Let me know what you think it is. We've got A, point out evidence that the play promoted the interest of Shakespeare's gender and class. B, argue that Shakespeare distorted history unintentionally because of his limited knowledge. C, assume that Shakespeare's presentation of facts reflected his artistic sensibility. D, recommend the play as an entertaining introduction to Roman history. Right off the bat, I'm saying C. I feel like that gives more of a feeling of the author than the other ones do. I don't think he cares about gender and class, or saying that Shakespeare has limited knowledge or that Roman history. I think he cares about Shakespeare's artistic sensibility. So I'm going with C automatically. I feel like that answer just jumped out and was like, this is the answer. And we got a bunch of C's. So let's try this. Yay! C is correct. All right, so far we are kicking butt. We got D, A, and C. Yes, it goes hand in hand. So that one is not one. If you have a question like that, I like deconstructing questions, which is hilarious because we're talking about deconstruction. But I like eliminating answers and really nitpicking the answers. But when you get a question like that where there's an answer that's just so freaking obvious, go for it and move on. Like, don't, argue it or try to eliminate answers. You pick that answer and you go on. But like I say, with y'all, I do a lot more talking and thinking on things than I normally would do. So, yay, we got 3 out of 4. So let's keep this going. Let's get this last one right, and then we can get 100% on one of the most difficult passages that I have personally ever read, and one that absolutely threw me for a loop, which is very rare. So kudos to this passage because that doesn't happen very often. So, what is the author's primary purpose in discussing deconstructionism in paragraphs 3, 4, and 5? So, here we have a location. Retrieval. If you see a location, you better go look at it. So, we have paragraphs 3, 4, 5. We know that there's 7 paragraphs. So, we're going to go back up. We're going to look at 3, 4. And what was the question again? My bad. Primary purpose in discussing deconstructionism in paragraphs 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to go up here 3, 4, 5 and kind of give it a glance. We talked about how it took over the classrooms. The CIA is with the enemy of the authors. We talk about social commentary. And we talked about bare bones and the MLA. So those are the things we talked about. So we have A, to denounce its triviality in order to strengthen the case for a contrasting vision. B, to acknowledge, okay, before I keep going with these answers, what you need to understand with these kind of questions, these are two-parters. These answers, I should say, are two-parters. When you have answers like that say to educate, to persuade, to reveal, to contrast, to acknowledge, to denounce, that's one part of the question. And sometimes, the answer. And sometimes you can eliminate an answer just on that part. And then you have the second part of the answer, which is the rest of it. So when you see to as the first word in all the answers, that is great. It is great. And I know that a lot of y'all aren't going to agree with me, but here's why. Because when you have a two-parter answer, you can eliminate easier. Because there's going to be something in the beginning part that eliminates it or the end part that eliminates it. So you have 2 opportunities to eliminate it. And it's going to whittle your answers down better if you're able to understand the passage enough to be able to answer. I don't know how to put that. So if you got a very, like the snotty educational passage that we did, if then if any of it's too, it's so hard to come up with examples off the top of my head. But we can work on this one and figure it out. But my point is, when you have something like that, it can help you to eliminate things easier because there's 2 parts that allow you to eliminate. And you can look at the beginning words and eliminate, and then you have the second part and you can eliminate. And it'll help you get to the right answer better. So these are a good thing, but you have to pay attention to both parts because sometimes there's questions where the second part, you're like, yeah, that totally makes sense. I think that's the right answer. But the first part just doesn't match up with the passage or the author's intentions or the author's purpose or the author's tone. So they both have to match up, which can eliminate more answers and whittle them down for you, but it can also trip you up. So it's got a good and a bad to it. And once you learn to work these, it's so much better. Okay, so I'm going to start from D and go up. I'm actually going to do the opposite because I want to look at that. I see D and I want to look at it. So to contrast its analytic method with an evaluative approach that may prove equally interesting. No. I can eliminate that off the bat. 1, in 3, 4, and D, there was no contrasting. He was talking about deconstructionism all by himself. He never talked about an evaluative approach. And he never said that any of this was interesting. He was talking about deconstructing literature not for fun, not to make it interesting. So the fact that it's contrast, evaluative, and interesting, I'm eliminating it. None of that makes sense with the passage. C, to reveal its lack of sympathy for writers as an argument for a more courteous manner by critics. I'm going to come back to that one. B, to acknowledge its existentialist principles in order to propose an extension of these principles. No. He didn't talk about existentialism. We talked about that in a different question. That's a word that was thrown in there twice in a very ambiguous way. If it's in my answer choices, I'm not going with it because it was never definitively put one way or another, and it was never defined for us. So B, no, that word, I feel like that word is a trap for this passage, because if you read this passage and didn't understand it whatsoever, that word was put in there twice in 2 different contexts, so that some people might go, hey, that word is very important because it was put in there twice when it talked about literature and when it talked about deconstructionism. So there's now been 2 questions with 2 different answer choices that have that word in there. So I feel like that's kind of a trap word where if you're using your memory, you're like, hey, I remember that word being in there. That word's important. That's the answer I'm going with. So I say B is a trap and I say no. So again, I'm saying no to B and D. Now I'm left with A and C. You guys have a feeling one way or another? I know which way I'm leaning, but I want to see where y'all are thinking. Here's where I'm leaning. I am leaning at A. I don't think anything in 3, 4, and 5. Yeah. Here's why C, I wasn't ready to eliminate right off the bat. The last part of that. As an argument for a more courteous manner by critics. I like the last part of that. And here's what I was talking about, how the both parts have to match. I think that the author is, later on in the passage, putting an argument for a more courteous manner by critics, of recognizing the creativity and the artistic elements of literature. So I agree with that. However, I don't feel like paragraphs 3, 4, and 5, where he's talking about the presence of this criticism throughout schools and colleges. Okay, so paragraph 3 was that it had filled a gap, that it became classroom, that it was in seminar rooms across the U.S. campus. It says, then campuses worldwide. Then this number 4, he's talking about how it transformed everything into social commentary. Then we got paragraph 5, where these group of people are completely destroying literature And this frenzy would then be called a Conference of the Modern Language Association. Y'all are college students. Have y'all heard of MLA? Have you ever had to write a paper in MLA format? MLA style? MLA should be recognizable to you. I'm not saying to put outside knowledge in this paragraph because you're not supposed to put outside knowledge, but MLA is big deal. I've counted it in every class. Although I'm a psych major, so we use APA, but MLA is in almost all the rest of my classes. So to me, that has nothing. I didn't see anything revealing of lack of sympathy. I do think paragraph 5 talking about leaving the literature to bare bones could be interpreted as a lack of sympathy, but I don't think it was outright this is a lack of sympathy. What I do think those paragraphs do, by number 3 saying that it's in every class, it's in campuses worldwide. Number 4 saying, I lost my thought. What did number 4 say? Number 3 is campuses worldwide. Number 4 transformed everything into social commentary, comparing it to sexual and racial politics. And then 5 talking about how this has created, the MLA has been created from this. I think that is in line with A, denounce its triviality. I cannot talk today, guys. Sorry. In order to strengthen the case for a contrasting vision. I think that those 3 paragraphs showed how important deconstructionism is and has been. Because, and I mean, that's the thing, it's asking us the purpose of deconstructionism in paragraphs 3, 4, 5. So you need to look at 3, 4, and 5. Not just 3, not just 4, not just 5. If it says the author's primary purpose in paragraphs 3, 4, and 5, you need to tie those together and find one purpose for all 3 that works across the boards. So talking about it being in campuses worldwide, talking about it being forming social commentary, and then talking about it forming the MLA, that is all showing how important this is and how expansive, I don't know that that's a word, but how vast this criticism is, how important it is, how influential, there you go, how influential this criticism has been, that it's in campuses worldwide, it's creating social commentary, and it's formed the MLA, which we all know and probably hate. So to me, that lines up with denounce its triviality versus reveal its lack of sympathy. I don't feel like it being in schools shows a lack of sympathy. I don't feel like it forming a social commentary shows a lack of sympathy. Paragraph 5 could go that way, but it's asking about 3, 4, and 5. And I think in 3, 4, and 5, it has a common purpose of telling us how important and influential it was. So I think that lines up with denounce its triviality in order to strengthen the case for a contrasting vision. The second part of that, I'm kind of not as sure about. I do think that, I don't know that it strengthens the case, but he does have a contrasting vision. I think the first part matches so perfectly that I'm okay with the rest of the sentence. I kind of wish I had the second part of C with the first part of A. You will, trust me, these thoughts will be in your brain. I am going to put myself in y'all's brains and y'all are going to hear me. That sounded really weird. I'm sorry about that. I'm really tired. But y'all are going to hear me and you're going to think like me in a good way. And this is why we practice and this is why we do these paragraphs, so that we can work together and figure these things out together. And you're going to, honestly, and I mean, I'm asking y'all because I want to know honestly, when you do passages with me as a group together and we work through a question like this, Do you remember more this question than you do one that you just work on your own, sitting down with the passage or the book? Okay. That's what I'm hoping for. Because I know that when I sit down and do passages, I can't even tell you. I did 2 passages earlier this week, and I can't even tell you what they were about. But I can sit here with y'all and talk about that graffiti passage that we did weeks ago. Weeks ago. I still remember the graffiti passage. So I'm hoping that by doing these passages and these questions together, these thoughts stick in your brain. And I mean, okay, I'm going to test this out. So I'm going with A. I'm going to see if that's right. Yay! So that was right. So we just did the hardest passage that I've ever done in my life. In my life. Hardest passage I've ever done. And we got 4 out of 4. We got 4 out of 4. Because we worked together, we eliminated answer choices, and we figured it out. And I know that y'all might have not have gotten 4 out of 4 if you did it on your own before we did this. But I hope now, after doing this extremely difficult passage and doing those questions together, that now you see the logic behind the answers so that you can get that 4 out of 4 by yourself. I mean, how much of a confidence booster is it to have a passage that is that difficult and get the answers right? I mean, that's a huge confidence boost. I know for me, I feel fantastic about that. Because I didn't understand that passage. And it even threw me for a loop in the beginning, which, like I said, does not happen very often. And yet, we were able to get through the passage, at the end, figure out exactly what he was talking about. Not exactly. We still are kind of confused about what deconstructionism is. But understand what his purpose was and his tone and the main idea of it, and was able to answer the questions step by step, eliminating answers and working together and get 100%. Yay. I didn't think we'd get 100%. That second one really scared me. But I'm hoping that this helps y'all. Do y'all feel like you understood it better? Do you feel like you did better on the questions when we do them together? Are y'all feeling more confident about these really difficult passages? More strategic about how to approach them? How are we feeling? Yay! That makes me so happy. Oh my god, that was the hardest passage I've ever done. No, see, I don't think you would have gotten a 0 out of 4. I feel like that we've covered enough strategy that you would have eliminated the nevers and the extreme answers, and you would have gotten definitely better than 0 out of 4. That's okay. I am very, very happy to hold your hand, and we will work on main point and we will get it down. I love main point. That's my favorite part. So that is my happy place. But I will help you. And actually, our first boot camp passage, all the questions are main point, main idea, and author's tone. So we will do the passage, and then I'm pretty sure it's 6 questions that are all main point, main idea, author's tone questions. See? Rain, there you go. That's what I do. I eliminate 2 answers, and then it's like, okay, which one's better? I do that. I try to do that with every question at least. And then you got a 50-50 chance. And then, unfortunately, you cannot take a coin inside the Mcat, so you cannot flip a coin. But you can strategically pick one. Or just guess. That works too. So I'm glad that you guys enjoy this. We're about at 2 hours again. No, Rain, don't do that. We will work on that, because what you might be doing, and I do this and I understand this because I've struggled with this too. The MCAT has trap answers. So if you get down to 2 answers and one's the right answer and one's a trap answer, you're gonna pick the trap answer if you don't know what to look out for, because trap answers are tricky and they're really good at trapping you. That's why they're called trap answers. So we will definitely work on that, and we will get you picking the right answers every time. I want y'all's scores to go so high from doing these workshops and these boot camps. I want you guys' scores to be almost near perfect. So we are going to keep kicking butt. That was the hardest. I mean, I did the entire EK 101 book, and I've never had a passage that was that difficult. So that was probably the hardest, most difficult passage I've ever done. But we still made 4 out of 4. So I am proud of us. That shows that we can do it no matter how difficult the passage is, and we're going to keep doing it. Yes, we're gonna talk about traps. It's hard to define a trap answer because there's different types of traps. But like today, I talked about I still can't say that word. The E word that was in 2 different answers. Because it's mentioned in the passage a couple times, your memory says, hey, that one, I remember that. Whereas the right answer had words that were not put in the passage. That's something like a trap, because your memory is going to tell you to pick that one when actually it's not that one. So we'll work on traps. I'll try to find some good examples of traps. I'll try to find some. We'll work on them. But we are almost at 2 hours, so we gotta wrap this up. But thank y'all for doing this passage with me and holding my hand through that excruciatingly horrible passage. I'm proud of us for getting 4 out of 4 right. Tomorrow I will post the intro to boot camp, talking about how we're going to do it, what we're going to do, what it's going to entail, and what we're going to cover with that. We're going to do question types. We're going to do trap answers. We're going to do timing. We're going to do strategies. We're going to do tips and tricks. I've been wanting forever to do a troubleshooting video for y'all. So I'm going to tie that into the boot camp. Basically, if you do A wrong, then here's how to fix it. If you do B wrong, here's how to fix it. So we're going to do all of that under boot camp. I'm going to put you through a boot camp that will make you go from a 120 to a 130. I am super excited about it, and to get more focused on specific areas or specific things in cars versus just doing a passage. So, yay. We are going to keep doing passages on Sunday nights, so keep coming back Sunday nights. But Wednesday night will be boot camp, and I'm excited. So tomorrow there'll be a video that's kind of just introducing it, explaining it, and what we're going to do. And then Wednesday night will be the first boot camp, and Sunday will be our next cars workshop. So thank y'all for coming. I hope y'all enjoyed it, even though that passage was horrible. Go have a glass of wine. You've earned it. And, oh, thank you. Yes, today is my wedding anniversary. We celebrated last night, though. So I will see you guys on Monday. Have a great night. Thank you so much. Love y'all. Bye.